Terraria's Eternity mode is a mode that can simply be described with one word: pain. And for some reason I felt like playing it, but rather than do it normally, I decided I would try and beat it with the clicker class. The clicker class is a pretty simple class as you just click enemies to death, but there are some more details that I'll explain later. So anyway, let's get into the video. I started off by using the Mutant Skiff to activate Eternity mode, which summoned the Deviant. The Deviant gave me some starter items and life crystals. I also had a clicker class starter bag, which came from a mod I didn't even realize I'd activated. It gave me the gold clicker and some other basic clicker accessories, which was pretty nice. I then started exploring the world and I found a pyramid which didn't have any good loot, but then I went into the underground desert. One thing to take note of for the clicker class is that you have to see enemies to damage them, so I'm unable to just hide away from enemies in caves. I continued to explore the world and I mined until I got to max life, where I decided to go to the corruption to break 2 demon orbs to get the goblin army to spawn. I then fought the goblin army and definitely did not get bullied by them. After defeating them, I went and mined until I got platinum armor. There are no clicker class armor sets until post Skeletron, so for now it's the best I can use. Soon after, a blood moon started. During the blood moon, I got a new clicker from one of the enemies called the Hemo Clicker. It had a special ability to make a damaging blood puddle that would stay in the area it spawned in for a bit. A cool thing about the clicker class is that each clicker has a clicker ability. These clicker abilities trigger after a certain amount of clicks and vary greatly depending on the clicker. For example, my gold clicker has the ability to deal double damage after a couple of clicks. For only one click though, but trust me, these clicker abilities can get pretty powerful, as you'll see later in the video. After that, I crafted the squirrel coat of arms to summon the Trojan squirrel, and I definitely did not die when I had 5 HP left. Well anyway, here's how my second attempt went. After defeating the Trojan squirrel, I wasted no time by going straight to fighting the King Slime. After a couple of close attempts, I beat it, and here's how the fight went. With the King Slime down, I went to the underground desert to mine for sturdy fossils in order to get the bone clicker which was made from them. The bone clicker's effect wasn't too special, with it only giving the gouge debuff which would deal 30 damage to enemies. I mainly picked it just for the higher damage. I then went on to fight the Eye of Cthulhu. It posed a decent challenge, especially in the last phase, as it was hard to hit while dashing. I had one advantage though. So you know how the Eye of Cthulhu inflicts the debuff of making you swing one weapon non-stop and being unable to change it? Yeah, it works pretty well in the clicker class as it gave me 20 CPS. With that and the Ebonwood enchantment, I took on the boss after a couple of attempts, and here's how it went. After defeating the Eye of Cthulhu, I felt like the bosses haven't been that bad, so this playthrough should be pretty easy, right? Yeah, my hopes for that quickly died down after I attempted to fight the Eater of Worlds. It completely countered me. It was fast moving and hard to hit due to all the segments. I even randomly got an Ancient Shadow helmet, but that didn't help at all. One of the weaknesses of the Clicker class was truly showing now. Its limited range. In order to properly fight the Ear of Worlds, there were moments where it would have been nice to be off screen, but if I do that, I can't deal any damage. Another weakness is the lack of splash damage, which sucks for a fight like this. It got to the point where I just decided I would fight Skeletron first. So I went to the dungeon and died to Skeletron to get the spawner. Also, before I tried multiple attempts against Skeletron, I also tried beating the Brain of Cthulhu on another world. But that doesn't really matter much as I couldn't even beat that, so I went back to fighting Skeletron. While fighting Skeletron, I finally realized something, that each clicker has their own clicker radius. That was pretty important as, for example, my bone clicker had higher damage but its range sucked. So I decided that I would do some research to find out what the best clicker available to me was right now. I found out that it was the Impish clicker that was dropped from Imps that not only had higher damage but also the highest range out of any clickers so far. Its ability was also useful as it gave me a dash which would allow me to swap the Shield of Cthulhu out for another accessory. So I went down to the underworld and farmed for a bit until I got it. I fought Skeletron several times before I farmed some money from the King Slime in order to get enough buffs so that my character was practically on steroids. After using those buffs on my first try, I got all the way to the Dungeon Guardian phase before dying. Here's how the next attempt went. With Skeletron down, I was finally able to go to the dungeon and get the mechanic. With the mechanic, I was able to make my first set of the Clicker class armor, the Motherbird armor, which required wires. I also was able to create a new accessory called Gamer Crate, which combined some of the Clicker accessories shown earlier. I also tried to fight the Ear of Worlds again, but I still failed, but I did succeed in fighting the Brain of Cthulhu. After beating the Brain of Cthulhu, I was ready to fight the Deviant, but before I could fight her, I had to do every Terraria player's least favorite thing, fishing. I needed to fish in a blood moon in order to get chum buckets, which were used to craft the Deviant's curse which spawned the Deviant. After getting the chum buckets, I crafted the spawner and used it to fight the Deviant. On my first attempt, I got absolutely destroyed because I forgot to get the Nymph's perfume. Why do I need that? It's because Deviant's attacks inflict a debuff called Love Struck, which would cause all my damage dealt to heal her instead. The Nymph's perfume provides immunity to that. So I grinded until I found a nymph, and I killed it, and then I bought some more from the Deviant until I got the nymph's perfume. So now that I have that, the boss should be easy, right? Wrong! The Deviant is a very small target and it is really hard to keep track of her while also trying to avoid attacks. I kept on dying and dying. My solution to this was to go to the dungeon, get a shadow key, and go to the underworld to get the strongest clicker in pre-hard mode, the Umbral Clicker. It did not only have great damage and great range, it had an amazing clicker ability of shooting out 5 homing projectiles. With the Umbral Clicker in hand, I fought the Deviant again. After defeating the Deviant, I was pretty much ready for the Wall of Flesh, but first there were some things I wanted to do. The first thing I did was get my revenge on the Ear of Worlds, which stood no chance against the Umbral Clicker. Then I beat the Queen Bee before trying Deerclops, but I ended up just skipping it. I already had a voodoo doll from when I grinded for the Impish Clicker, so it was time to fight the Wall of Flesh. On my first attempt I got pretty far and I knew I could beat it on my second attempt, and here's how that went. Pre-hard mode is now done and it's only going to get harder from here. The Wall of Flesh dropped many progression boosting items like an item to destroy all demon altars, wings, a mithril anvil, and an adamantite forge. We also can't forget the extra accessory slot, which is now holding a clicker emblem. I then found the wizard before I went off to the hollow to kill some rainbow slimes in order to create the next set of clicker armor called the RGB armor. Its set bonus gave another clicker ability which would send off damaging projectiles from your cursor to enemies. I mined for a bit and crafted a titanium clicker as well as the spawner for Queen Slime. I then fought the Queen Slime and got utterly destroyed. I went ahead and farmed some hollowed mimics to get some items I would need later. I also fought the twins and they were even stronger than the Queen Slime. I could tell that I'm in for a ride. Hard mode was a huge difficulty curve and I was struggling. I kept on losing to the Queen Slime. I also tried the other mech bosses, but to no one's surprise, I lost badly. But after many attempts, I decided I would try an attempt where I would try and click way faster, and here's what happened. After defeating the Queen Slime, I went on to fighting the mech bosses. After alternating between fighting the twins and the Destroyer for a bit, I determined that the Destroyer would be the easiest to beat. That doesn't mean it'll be easy though. After failing enough attempts, I killed some jungle mimics to get the tribal charm. The tribal charm is a accessory that boosts your damage by 30% if you click manually. I don't really think I need to explain how that's really useful for the clicker class. I also did craft the crystal assassin enchantment, but I stuck with the shields for Fulu for now. Eventually, after I don't know how many attempts, this fight happened. Yeah, I don't think a fight can get much closer than that. But anyway, with the hollowed bars I acquired, I crafted the Arthur's Clicker, which was a stronger clicker that had a clicker effect of dealing splash crit damage. I also crafted the Clicker's Essence, which was pretty much just an upgrade to the Clicker's emblem. I then went on to fighting Skeletron Prime, as the twins seemed to be the hardest boss. After several attempts against Skeletron Prime, I decided to fight the Old One's army to get a clicker from the ogre, but for some reason, the event seemed a little bit off. Just a little bit. Well anyway, after getting the new clicker, which didn't really have an ability, but just higher damage, I continued to fight Skeletron Prime, and after several attempts, I beat it, and here's how the fight went. Now that Skeletron Prime has been beaten, it is time to fight the twins. But since I've been struggling with the twins a lot, like I've done several attempts while I was doing the Destroyer and Skeletron Prime, I decided to grind for the Binomic Cluster. The Binomic Cluster is an accessory that combines many other useful accessories. So after grinding for a couple of hours, I got all the items needed to make it, and then I continued fighting the twins. It took a while, but eventually I beat it, and here's how it went. With all the mech bosses defeated, I was able to craft the Overclock Armor, which had the special ability of making it so that after every 100 clicks for 3 seconds, all your clicks would trigger your clicker's clicker effect. But rather than show it to you now, you'll see it in action with the next boss. I also crafted the True Umbral Clicker, which was just a direct upgrade to the Umbral Clicker. I also went to the jungle and increased my health with light fruits before I decided to fight Lifelight. This fight didn't really show it too well, but as you can see, Overclock is an ability that allows me to take out huge chunks of HP from bosses. After defeating Lieflight, I then crafted a City Buster and used it to clear out an arena for Plantera in the underground jungle. I then spawned in Plantera, and on my first attempt, I shredded it with Overclock, but I died because I didn't know the attacks. But here's how the second attempt went. After beating Plantera, I went against the Solar Eclipse. I grinded against several Mothrons until I got the Broken Hero Clicker, which allowed me to craft the Terror Clicker. It shot out some cool green projectiles, but it ended up being weaker than the true Umbra Clickers due to simply how powerful of a combination Overclock and the true Umbral Clicker is. I then fought the Golem. Wait, is that Sans Undertale? Well, anyway, I got absolutely destroyed as the Golem fight is pure chaos. I also tried the Empress of Light, but I decided to push off fighting it for now after getting beaten kind of badly. After failing more attempts, I decided to do the Pumpkin Moon to upgrade my wings by getting the Spooky Wings. While doing the event, I got a new clicker called the Witch Clicker, which had a clicker effect of doing a random clicker effect. That clicker effect wasn't too useful, but it had a high base damage, so it might find some use. I continued fighting the Golem until I beat it like this. After beating the Golem, I was ready to take on the Lunatic Cultist. The Lunatic Cultist wasn't too bad. As you see, I kept on dying to it, but I was actually getting very close to beating it at every attempt I tried. The main problem was that my clicker's projectiles kept on hitting a clone and summoning the Phantasmal Dragon. After it was summoned, I would usually deal a lot of damage and almost beat the boss before it would kill me right at the end. I decided to do the Scuffed Old One's army again to fight Betsy and get Betsy's wings. I then just kept on fighting the Lunatic Cultist, hoping I would get lucky and beat it until I eventually did. After beating the Lunatic Cultist, I got the Mutant's Pact, which gave me another accessory slot. I went ahead and crafted the Gaia armor set, which is an armor set from Fargo Souls mod, which I can actually use as it buffs the damage itself. It has a special ability of reducing your life and defense for increased damage. The nice thing is that I was able to keep the Overclock ability as I crafted the Overclock enchantment, which allows me to continue using it, and I put it in my new accessory slot. I also fought the Empress of Light and Duke Fistron, and here's how both of those fights went. Eventually I destroyed all the lunar pillars, and each of them gave me some mice essence, which I used to craft a mice clicker, which seemed like an upgrade to the true Umbral clicker, except being a little different as it homed to your cursor rather than to enemies. The Moonlord was going to spawn soon, and I felt ready to beat it. After waiting for a bit, the Moonlord spawned, and I did no damage to it. So yeah, I wasn't able to deal damage to it due to Eternity Mode's Moonlord giving a special effect that makes every class except a specific class deal no damage. I tried to figure out any sort of solution to this, but the best thing I could come up with was giving myself the post-Moonlord item that disables the effect and disable all its other abilities and then fight the Moonlord. It's probably not the solution you want to hear, but it is what it is. Anyway, here's how the fight went. Since I was able to actually damage the Moonlord, it wasn't too hard. Well anyway, I grinded Moonlord a couple more times to get a certain clicker. Eventually I got it. The clicker was called the Clicker. As soon as I got it, I knew the rest of the playthrough wouldn't be too hard because of its clicker ability. The clicker's ability was to deal 1% of any enemy's HP in one click. That means I am guaranteed no matter what to kill any boss in 100 hits. It was now time to fight the post-Moonlord bosses. Yeah, it wouldn't be fun if it was that easy. After that, I decided to craft the Styx armor as it was the best possible armor I could use. I also decided that I would at least give the mutant respect of me crafting the strongest clicker class accessory, the Master Player's Soul. This item combines all the clicker class accessories into one very strong item. I then started fighting the mutant again, but I quickly noticed a problem of lacking HP, which was clearly apparent with how quickly the mutant would kill me, which was especially painful if I reached the desperation phase, a phase where you can't deal damage to it anymore, but you just simply have to survive. I crafted the Soul of the Master, which increases my HP by 100%. I started getting to the desperation phase more and more, but I kept on dying. I eventually ended up crafting the Colossus Soul and Flight Mastery Soul. I started to get painfully close with me getting to the Death Beam and dying to an eye or a barrier. But eventually, after a couple of hours of attempts, this happened. Wow, it's honestly kind of funny to see how it looks so easy when watching it, but trust me, it wasn't. I just lucked out on this attempt. But anyway, we did it! Beating Terraria mode with the clicker class was certainly a unique experience. If you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like and subscribing. Thanks for watching. Bye!